Hi, I'm Deborah Hamilton, Hamilton Law and Mediation, the Why Do Pets Matter podcast, which I hope all of you have checked out. It's incredible. It's in its second year this past November, or maybe it was its first year. It's first year, but we have maybe it's its second. Who knows what year it is, considering COVID was in the middle, and who knows where we are or what we've done. I am so grateful you're all here. I see new faces as well as old faces. I'm so glad Sally's here, and I'm so glad Connie's here, and I'm so glad Ms. or Mr. Ostrom is here. I'm thrilled. We will check in a minute. I just wanted to bring you up to date to what's happening here. We are in North Carolina, and it's been quite an adventure getting our house ready to move into. But as all of us who are here tonight want to know, how do you make sure you keep your pets safe? Well, I'm in the middle of construction of a house, and so my dogs have all been off to the 5 winds so that they are safe. And today, yay, we organized the pickup of my youngest dog, Junie, from the Orlando shows in Florida. And he is going to come up with my son, Thomas, when Thomas comes up for Christmas. So Thomas is looking forward to going by the AKC event in Orlando, December 19th. That's a Sunday. And he's going to pick up Junie and bring him back to his apartment, which, of course, as some of you know, is a no animal apartment. But he assures me he will not be thrown out on his keister if he keeps Junie for the 2 days he needs to keep him. Until he can drive up on the 22nd. This is something we all have to think about. You know, if you're in construction with your house, where are your dogs going to go? How are they going to stay safe? It was an imperative for me when I moved that my dogs went to the safest place they could. Sally here on our MAAP program has one of my older dogs because she really didn't want to be in a place that wasn't sort of like home. And Roxy had always gone to stay with Sally and Gordon when I was traveling. So going to Sally and Gordon's for this extended period of time has done her heart good. She's lost weight. She's happy. She's got an interesting haircut, and she's awesome. Junie went out to finish his championship, which he did with all majors, 4 and 5 point majors, 2 4-point, 2 5-points. We finished with 18 points. And he also is a master hunter. So he went to do things to keep him busy because he's only going to be 4, maybe it's 5, because again, I'm bad with the years now that we had that one blip year. He's only 5 and he just finished. So without further ado, I'm going to check in with everybody. That's what's up with me right now. I know that everyone who's been here for most weeks thinks about the dogs that I don't have, which drives me nuts. And I just want to say for, I think it might be Barbara Ostrom, that remember what the MAAP plan stands for. It stands for that plan you make that will take care of your pets short-term, long-term. Oh, and the other thing I really wanted to talk about today was I spoke with an attorney friend of mine. I'm working on a program with the American Bar Association to put together a learning piece for attorneys on how to deal with conflicts in shelters and in rescues. So in horse rescues, they have this contract that you're supposed to do certain things if you adopt one of their horses. Well, one of their horses was adopted, and unfortunately, I know one of the D's, okay, disaster struck, disability struck. The woman who adopted it fell and fractured her spine and couldn't take care of the horses. So her daughter came in. Now the shelter, in all its best intention, said, "Could you please send us some pictures of the horses?" And I'm sure the daughter is a little overwhelmed by having to take care of the 2 horses her mother adopted a week or 2 before she fell and hurt herself. Her mother's in the hospital. I don't know if this woman works full time, lives nearby, whatever. And so the simple act of asking for pictures of the horses put her over the edge. And then the horses disappeared. So, of course, the horse rescue is crazier than loons. And I was working with the attorney who's handling it, and I said, I know this is really frustrating for the shelter, but imagine how frustrating it is for the daughter of the woman who adopted the animals. And maybe the animals went to a perfectly wonderful place, but she's so mad at you for not checking in on how she's doing that she's not going to tell you just to be difficult. So what I always try to explain to people is you really need to have, before you adopt an animal, a plan in place. Who are the three people who are going to care for your horses or your dogs, especially horses, because they don't go easily places, your dogs, your cats, so that that plan is followed if something happens to you. We talk about the D's all the time. So there's divorce. You have to decide who's going to get the pet if somebody gets divorced, because if you do it while you're going through the divorce, it's uglier than any other discussion you're ever going to have. Disease, if you get cancer or Alzheimer's, you really want to make sure that you have a plan in place, because you're going to want your dogs to stay with you as long as they possibly can. And then go to great homes after they can't stay with you any longer, because don't we all heal much better if our pets are with us? There's disability, there's deployment, there's disaster. So Connie, who lives out in California, I heard that the fires are really picking up out there. So I'm very worried about you. I can't wait to hear how things are going. You have deployment, you have delays. So some of us can't get home. What happens to the animals if you can't get home? The ability to put directions in a place that's easy to find, whether you're traveling with your pets, whether your pets are home alone, whether you're traveling and your pets are home alone and you need to get that information to someone. That's why you're here. That's what the MAAP plan stands for. Make a plan, appoint caregivers, address the needs of your pet, and publish it with the people who matter, the people who are going to be taking care of your pets if something happens to you. So without further ado, I'm going to start checking in. And of course, I just mentioned my friend Connie, and I'd love to check in with you first, Connie, because I know that those fires are pretty stinky.
Well, before I talk about that, I would just like to say, if it is indeed Barbara Ostrom of Vacaville, California, a veteran fellow Wheaton breeder mom, whom I know well, and whose breeding program has benefited, like mine, from our common dear friend Bonnie Snyder, who was out in India. Barb, I hope it's you.
Yay!
Oh, wonderful! Yay!
I apologize. I missed the first part of it, and I don't have a picture up there. But yes, it is me, Connie. Thank you.
Oh, wonderful!
Welcome. That's great.
Wonderful. We miss you, Barb and her wonderful husband Marshall, who is a terrific handler. And I usually all set up with our Northern California peeps when several of us go up to show at the big Northern California shows, and there's some big specialties up there, and we miss you with all the COVID stuff. But speaking of that, we're not really bothered by the fires down here in SoCal, fortunately.
Thank God.
I think they're farther up the state. But I'm sure everybody has seen the breaking news that the very first reported case of the Omicron variant, it landed at SFO today.
Yes,
and so just like the very first case of COVID period, California is breaking all the COVID records again. And
but I think California's got a good protocol still in place, like New York does, where you have to wear masks, you have to have your vaccination card, you have to have ID. You know, I know it's a pain in the rear end, but boy, did I feel much safer in the big city of New York than I do in the little city of Morehead City, North Carolina, where like it's a free-for-all.
Well, in fact, the Los Angeles County Department of Health issued a mandate several weeks ago before Thanksgiving that if you were going to do anything indoors, whether it was a restaurant, a bar, an office, a business, you had to have your COVID inoculation card and you had to have your mask on. So that's very good. In fact, I'm going to a holiday party this evening just up the road in Torrance, one of our South Bay cities. And while the main bulk of the party is going to be outside and it will be chilly, if we want to go indoors, we have already been warned, you better have your COVID card and you better have your mask.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say that it did not interfere with my son or my fun in New York City while I was at the New York Vet Conference speaking to have that mask. And it actually made me feel so much better. And every single one of the servers and I looked behind the curtain in the cook area and they were all wearing masks. So it just seemed to be a little bit safer. And, you know, I am boosted. I'm a booster girl because here in North Carolina,
Me too.
there is no line to get a booster in North Carolina because nobody's getting them, but it's okay. I'm all set and ready to go. So I'm glad to hear you're not near the fires. And yeah, I did hear that. I said, oh my God, Connie is in the hotbed, always in the hotbed, Connie.
Well, the good news is that according to the New York Times daily map of where the COVID hotspots are, California is very, very, very pale yellow. And in fact, the health weather metric for Los Angeles County is in the green.
Oh, good.
This morning. So that's very good. I mean, we're very strict, but it's working.
Yeah, I don't. So I'm an attorney, and everybody should have their own personal rights, and I agree with that. But sometimes, rowing the boat in the same direction is really kind of helpful for everyone, especially people who are vulnerable, who have underlying issues that are really difficult. You're helping everybody else. So that's my thoughts. So that's why I wear my mask everywhere, and everybody looks at me here in North Carolina, but it's okay. This way I'm not as funny looking as I am when I'm not wearing a mask. So there you go. Hey, Sally, good to have you back. You've been a busy woman.
Yeah, and I got to admit, being from the New York area, I've been to Florida and Arizona. Nobody was wearing masks, and I'm wearing masks, and everybody looked at me like I was crazy. And so,
aren't you vaccinated? You don't have to wear a mask if you're vaccinated.
Yeah, I'm vaccinated and boosted, but still, I'm just like playing it safe. And I have a big photo shoot next Wednesday, Thursday, and we have the 15-minute COVID test and the N90, the masks for everyone who's coming in, and they've got to show the COVID card, have their temperature taken before they can even walk into the photo studio. So I've got the handlers, the owners, the pets. It's crazy. It's just like, it's different no matter where you are in America. It's very, very different. I go to a restaurant in New York, you walk in, they take your temperature, they look at the COVID card, they check your ID, then you can go into the restaurant.
Same here.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And it is a pain. I'm technologically advanced because I have my COVID card on an app on my phone.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Really cool.
We can do that here in California too.
Yeah. So I have my app on my phone, and the first time I went to use it, I didn't know how to open it. So that was a little difficult. It's great to have these new things, but if you don't know how to use them. So it's really important, here we are, we're all talking about this possibility. I had a colleague on the animal law committee who was on a call with me this morning. I just spoke about it before that, we're talking about how to, talk to people in conflict over shelter issues. And she said so this is why we need to take care of ourselves, because we don't know who's sitting next to us. She flew from California to Hawaii and back with a fever, and with what she found out later was COVID. She said she felt like shit, but she'd already had her 2 shots. So she thought, hey, I'm fine. I don't have a problem. And they did say it's 92% effective, and that 8% can sneak up and bite you in the hiney. And if you're sick and you have pets and you don't have somebody to come in and help you with them, I mean, if you have a fenced in backyard that's escape proof, fabulous. If you don't, then you really need to have somebody on call. This is the appoint caregivers. Some have to be nearby, because if you get sick, I know that these things are less of a risk for us now because most of us are vaccinated. If we get it, we're going to feel like shit on toast, excuse my expression, but we hopefully will not be hospitalized. So then our dogs will be in our house laying on our beds because they know we're sick, and we know the dogs really don't bother you when you're sick. They're really great that way. They sort of just sit on your lap. On the bed, and let you go to sleep. However, if you don't feel like feeding them, you need to have that person on the other end of the phone to call to say, come help me. And I know, Sally, while you were traveling, you actually had somebody come in and take care of the girls.
Yeah, actually, she was so impressive. I think she may have taken better care of them than I did, but she recognized, problems like if the dogs were not eating. I had told her how to switch up the food, and she did. And if they had a fear of something, while they were walking, she recognized that. And because they're setters, they have ear problems. And I came back and their ears were just fabulous. They were so clean. And I was like, this is a great dog sitter. And she did say to me, some of the dog sitter sites, they can have very unethical people on those sites. So she said, if you do get a dog sitter, make sure it's through a recommendation. And she said, I would not recommend going to a dog sitter site, but actually only by recommendation to get someone to care for your dog.
Right. I have to tell you that when Junie was supposed to come back a little earlier and the house wouldn't be ready, I was dropping him off with a woman who's had 3 dogs from me. So she was going to take him in North Carolina in Raleigh while I waited. And she has a beautifully fenced in yard right now. And you've met her, Sally, Kathy McNamee. She's now down here in North Carolina. But she was going to take him because, that way I knew he would be safe. There's somebody who knows the breed, that knows my training, that knows my dog's temperaments. It really is important. Don't just bring somebody in right before you're about to leave and say, here are the keys. Good luck with that. I know, Sally, you had her come and stay overnight while you and Gordon were still there just to give her a lay of the land.
Yeah, and that worked out very, very well. We couldn't have been happier. And then if there's a problem, I called the first night, I goes, things going okay? And she goes, yeah, but this. And I go, okay, so try this and this. And she goes, okay. And then the next night I called, I go, I don't mean to bug you, but are things going okay? She goes, yeah, that was a great solution. And now things are going well. So yeah, we were very fortunate. It worked out well for us.
It's a collaborative relationship. They're not going to, the dogs could be moping around or the cats could be moping around because it's not you, it's somebody else. But most of the time, they like the change. And I must confess that my dogs were on the dog sitter's bed when she was there, and they never sat on my bed when I was there visiting. So I was a bit peeved that they liked a total stranger better than their mother, but I digress. So Susan, how's everything going with Maggie?
Maggie's doing well. I'm going to be planning a little trip, and I'm thinking about boarding her instead of taking her with us. And also I'm looking into, my vet offered trazodone or fluoxetine for helping calm her down. And so I'm trying to decide which one I want to start her on. But I think it's a good move to be able to train her. And, we are very attached to the dog. There's no question. She's very attached to us. Sometimes when I get angry and upset with her, I open the front door. She just looks at me and does not run out.
Yeah. What are you kidding me? I have 3 squares and a flop here. So for Barbara's information, Susan has a lovely Catan that was gotten during COVID. And so she hasn't been socialized a lot. And she is a very forceful personality. So she's a little nippy. Biting is one of her favorite pastimes. And so we're working with Susan, and we're working with 2 behaviorists, I think one over Zoom and one possibly locally, to work through training or getting Maggie to stop being so reactive, which is probably due to the fact that she just hasn't had a lot of experience. And we all know, we've seen dogs at dog shows who are reactive now because they weren't exposed as much as they would have been had they been puppies in the normal world. So if you're going to try that, though, Susan, make sure you work with Kathy or your other trainer to see which one she suggests, and also how long before you would drop her off at a kennel or a vet before you go on vacation, because you don't want to have it all at the same time. It's sort of when people give their dogs drugs to go on an airplane under the belly of the plane, I go, you just want to drive that dog out of their minds. I mean, unless you've done it before and you know the dog's reaction, you really shouldn't do it when it's going into a strange situation, because it could really bring on more anxiety and create another issue you hadn't foreseen. So that's something you really need to work up to.
Yeah, I'm going to get started right away with this because I don't want to keep reinforcing bad habits every day. So the sooner the better.
And you know what? Sometimes it's hard for us to be, consistent trainers. I know, my dogs have very bad habits. Sally can tell you of a few. White dogs might be something that you could talk about. But, it's hard to break them of habits if you don't have that situation coming up very often, or if you just are so busy. I mean, I sit behind my desk all day. I don't necessarily stop my dogs from doing naughty things. So I
Right.
know and I understand how hard it is to bring the dogs around. But if this works, and then you can get a trainer so that you can possibly wean her off, because long term, these kind of cares don't necessarily bode well for the dog. So you might want to, just have
Yeah, no, I agree.
a working program.
Right, I agree. It's not good to keep giving drugs.
And of course, I'm going to ask you that question, Susan.
Okay, no, of course, I wouldn't, I expect you to. Thank you.
So, have you put your sign up on your refrigerator yet?
Yes, it's still there from a long time ago.
Yay!
but
Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we are so thrilled that you are trying to work through Maggie's issues. So, most people wouldn't have done that. And it's really a credit to you that, it's been a difficult time for her. It's been a difficult time for the family, and you're still working it through. So that's great.
No, we have a great attachment to her, and especially my son. I mean, he seems to really enjoy the dog, and we do as well. I mean, she's a great animal. She's just, got
Naughty.
Yeah, she's naughty.
Naughty. Yeah.
Yeah.
We have to use positive, negative words, so to speak. Barbara, tell us a little bit about your Wheatons and what brings you here, and if you have any questions, because I love to answer questions.
Well, we have three, a 9-year-old, a 6-year-old, and her son, a 4-year-old. We've shown two, the mother, who's now retired, her son. The reason that what brings me here actually is because we're getting ready to work up some paperwork in case anything happens to either my husband and I, to decide on how we're going to care for the three if anything happens to us. So it's not, as you were talking about, health issues or reactiveness or anything like that. It's just how we're going to formulate who cares for the animals if anything happens to us, or if we can no longer care for them ourselves. So that's what we're looking for.
So you're looking to hedge your bets with the D's, which is probably not divorce, but disability, dementia, disease. These things are things that happen. And if you put all of your care plans for your pets in your will, right, you just have to make sure you die.
Right. Right.
And we all would like to just lay down one day and not open our eyes, and then we don't have to worry about it. But making sure that you have those, that journey navigated for your pet going forward. So we talked about this a lot during COVID, because people were being taken to the hospital and thought, or were going to the hospital freely themselves because they weren't feeling well. And then they were admitted because their oxygen level was -20, right? So they were admitted and they had made no plans for their pets. And so you were doing a great job, because this is what you want to do. But during COVID, I actually expanded the MAAP model, because I used to say, okay, so you can have somebody in Maryland and in Connecticut and in Florida who would be the people who would come and take care of your pets. However, during COVID, as you probably know, unless all of your friends were in California, the governor shut the states down. And if something happened to you, coming in from out of state or then leaving was really difficult. So I said, well, you really have to have a nosy neighbor. And you really have to include them in at least knowing who to call if something happens to you. Because when the EMTs come, I learned this when my husband broke his shoulder. So the reason for the MAAP plan is I broke my ankle and I had 9 dogs, Barbara. So you want to shoot yourself. And my husband told me, and all the dogs, they ate down the basement and everything, because my husband likes the house tidy. So we had a beautiful kennel, and they ate there, and it was great. But I had to go down a set of stairs with a broken ankle. So while I was recovering, I wrote this program, and it was first, I'm not dead yet, because everybody puts all their plans in their will, and I wasn't dead yet, but I certainly was in trouble. So I built this plan so that people could make those decisions and make a plan. So what you want to do is you want to sit down with your husband and say, okay, so if something happens to you, and I want to take care of you, I'm going to need somebody to help me with the dogs. Because my husband was quite honest and frank. He said, I'm taking care of you with a broken ankle. I'm not taking care of the dogs. Now, fast forward 3 years, he broke his shoulder. Now, I am a human dynamo. I didn't have any broken bones at the time, so I was good. And I found it so much easier to be able to call the people. Oh, you've got to go to your other Zoom. Bye, Connie, honey. I found it so much easier to make sure that I had people backing me up when I was taking care of my husband, because he wasn't as good a patient as I was. You know, he needed a lot more assistance than I needed. So I was able to take care of the dogs, but know that if I got stuck at a doctor's appointment or I got stuck at physical therapy, there was somebody there who could come in and keep the dogs on their schedule if they needed to. So that's always a piece of it. So you need someone nearby. And I know Susan will laugh. I always check with her, because the one thing you need is a note somewhere very conspicuous, not in a folder. People say, well, I have it in a folder marked if there's an emergency. I said, if the police or emergency management have to look for it, they'll never look. It has to be somewhere really easy to find. And if you travel to dog shows, it needs to be on the dashboard, you know, taped to the dashboard. Not pretty, I get it. But if God forbid you have an accident, you know,
Right.
you need to say, well, there are people behind me who, you know, we all talk to each other when we go to dog shows. We all know who's going, right? So you can say, well, this person you can call, or this person, and they'll come and get the dogs. And then they have to have a sheet of paper that says, yes, Barbara has given me permission to pick up her dogs from Animal Care and Control. Because if you're on the road, those dogs are going to Animal Care and Control. And
Right.
unless somebody has a note that says, I am, you know, Deborah Hamilton, and Barbara has said I can pick up her dogs, they may or may not release the dogs. And you don't ever want your dogs to go to Animal Care and Control. You know, some states require dogs to be spayed or altered before you get them out of Animal Care and Control in certain states and cities. I was maniacal at the New York City Bar Association when they told me that in New York City, where we have Westminster, that if a dog is picked up by Animal Care and Control, you can't get it back unless it's altered or spayed. And I said, well, that would be really troubling for everyone at Westminster.
Right.
If, God forbid, their dog got away in Central Park and was picked up by Animal Care and Control. So one of my colleagues who doesn't approve of what I do, because I don't have an adopted dog, she said, your dogs are exempt. And I said, well, great. Could you tell me the statute that I have to read to make sure my pets are exempt? And what it says is, if your dog has been entered in an AKC event in the past 12 months, then your dog will get special dispensation. It will not have to be spayed or altered. So what happens to those great stud dogs who come in maybe to meet a lady or two over Westminster, but are not entered and haven't been entered in the last year? Right?
Good question.
Or those, you know, 5-month-old puppies that we're bringing along because we're going to a dog show, and they'll turn 6 months in a whatever, and they've never been entered.
Right. Good question.
So I said, you know, this is something that people don't know. So I always say, wherever you're going, look what the rules are. If the dogs are getting, you know, might be picked up, God forbid, you know, we always take very good care of our dogs. But that's why I say the nosy neighbor. You want the nosy neighbor who's going to say, listen, I know what Barb wants to do. There's a sign up on her refrigerator that has me as one of the people, and then the 3 other people you can call who are going to come and take the dogs. Leave them alone. Leave them in the house. And I will make sure they're cared for until the other person comes up. And you can assure your neighbor who probably doesn't want to take care of your dogs that one of those people will be down to take care of the dogs, and the dogs will live till they get here. Maybe you have a neighbor like I did who was more than willing to come over and sit and play with the dogs if something happened to me, until one of my longer term caregivers would be able to show up. Go ahead.
The other issue is turning them over to rescue, our club rescue, or something like that, because one of our Wheatons is Addison, so he has to have medication.
Yep.
So a lot of people are not going to be willing to take that on, because
I'm so glad you said that. I'm so glad you said that, because, you know, the remainderment of every one of the caregivers should be the purebred rescue or the rescue you adopted the dog from, because that's very important. And one of the A's of the MAAP, so one is appoint caregivers, right? So you have to appoint at least 3, and only one can be a family member because they're going to be taking care of you. So you really need to give them a break. And the other is address the needs of the pet. So that means, hey, my dog has Addison's. They take this much medication every day. It's going to cost you this much a month to have the dog. I always say leave some money in a pet trust, because if you have all your money in the will and you're not dead, that's not helpful. So you need some money in a pet trust or an annuity that's for the dogs that can be earmarked for the dogs that will help offset some of the cost. However, if someone's taking your dog, you've set it up this way, they shouldn't be looking for a big payout. They should be taking your dog and you're paying for their expenses to travel there and a bag of dog food. So like $1,000, because some of us on this call are over 21. And so we'd have to make the pet, I believe, and you can check with your estate person, we have to make these pet trusts irrevocable. If you put $2,000 or $3,000 or $4,000 in the pet trust to cover the transfer of the dogs from point A to point B, right? That's immediately available. However, if you get sick, Medicare will claw that money back into your estate if it's not irrevocable. So that money that you set aside for the care of your dogs will be clawed back into your pot if you're on Medicare. So that's what you need to do to make sure that the money you set aside outside your will not be clawed back into. And of course, it has to be done 5 years before you need it, or else they'll claw it back anyway, because that's just what they do. So the one thing I'd love for you to do tonight after this call is just make sure you put 3 or 4 numbers up in a very conspicuous place. Or if you don't like to put people's numbers on the door, somebody said, I don't want to put somebody's number on the door, and I don't want my number on somebody's door. Say, there isn't a bright red envelope by the refrigerator that deals with the care of my pets. So if you don't want to put the numbers up there, make sure it's a big, bright yellow, bright green, bright, whatever color it is, that's what you're going to do, because it's really important for that. And when you're traveling with them, have all their information with you, but also have that same note. There's a bright red folder in the car between the passenger seat and the console, and it tells you what to do with the dogs. Don't touch the dogs, do this, because it has to be idiot proof. And I don't mean that anyone who's in animal care and control or EMTs or police are idiots, but they have a focus on you, the human. They're not really going to focus on the animals, except animal care and control. And they would really like to know what to do with your pets if they're picking them up.
Right. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So tonight, before you go, now I'm going to go to my favorite community member on earth, Barbara, because Kieran is from Tenerife, and he wrote this great book that's titled When Your Child Asks for a Dog, One-Eyed Leo Guides the Conversation. So it's this book about what it takes to be a responsible dog owner from the dog's point of view. I'm thinking I should try to send you the link, or maybe Kieran can put it up in the chat so that you can look at it. It is a book based on dogs that end up in shelters or in rescues, but it also deals with dogs for breeders, because you really want to make sure the person knows they're supposed to call you back. If God forbid something happens, call you back. But it also gives the person who's calling you, who wants one of those beautiful Wheatons, or for us, the Irish setters, an idea of what it's going to cost, what it's going to take, the time, the effort, the training for the animal, and saves us a lot of time. And it's a beautifully illustrated book, and it's been picked up by several SPCAs over in Europe. And it's Dogwise has picked it up. So it's a really wonderful book to share with new puppy owners before they take your dog, because that's, when the rubber meets the road is when the puppy, well, not when the puppy first goes home, Barb, because as well as I do, the puppies are angels for about 5 or 6 weeks. And then, once they know they won't be returned, they become the devil incarnate.
Right.
So Kieran, tell us a little bit about
Thank you.
And what you're up to. You're very welcome.
Well, just to you, Barbara, first, I've just sent you the link.
I see.
Right. And there's also a promo code there as I think it's the first time we've met on this. So there's a copy just for yourself.
Thank you so much.
And
It
the
is
big
a
news
fabulous-
is,
Go ahead.
the big news is start. It's the one, there's two unique properties to this book. The first one is start at the back in your position, because that's where that's where Debbie's forms are. The chapter on making the plan is at the back of the book.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So that will save you a lot of work, and it'll put tonight into perfect context.
Great. Thank you
So
so
you-
much.
So you can start straight away. Now, the other thing I will tell you is it's the first children's book that was ever written whereby if a child doesn't like it, the parent can consider it a big success. For the simple reason that the book teaches the children what it takes to look after a dog. And in the focus groups, we had a few children saying, well, yeah, it was a good idea at the time, but not anymore. It's too much work. So it's the first book in the world to test a child's resolve. And it does two other things, I suppose. One is it comes between the parent and the child. The parent doesn't have to give a decision. And the child has to make up its own mind based on a love story. And in some cases, the child will say, I know everybody else in my class wanted one, but I'm not so sure anymore. So I will leave that with you, Barbara. And there's a video there I've sent you as well, which gives the story behind the book. And I say that's your personal private copy, but please let everybody else know about it.
Thank you so much.
It has been just a labor of love because we've been here during COVID, and Kieran came on probably right after COVID started, right in March. You've been here probably over a year now, or almost a year. Yeah. And he was just writing it then, Barbara. So we sort of feel like we've all birthed the book together. And it was just a concept that he had. And when he sent me the original copy, it was, specifically for shelter and animal care and control and adopted pets. And I said, yes, but wouldn't this be great if somebody wanted a purebred dog too? And he goes, I never thought of it that way. And I said, absolutely, because it is a responsibility, whether the dog is from a shelter or from a breeder, because this is something that breeders can really get behind as teaching children the responsibilities of pet ownership. And we know as breeders that we can, flap our lips a million times, and we don't necessarily get as deeply into the important things as this book does. So I was so glad that my program here brought Kieran in, and I was grateful and so thankfully put this program in the back of the book. But I was just grateful he was writing this book, because I'm going to give it to everybody who calls for my puppies, because they really need to know what it takes to be able to be a part of the dog owning world, and to some extent the cat owning world, because they need responsible care and ownership as well. So anything else on the pike, Kieran?
No, just to say it's been raining nonstop here in Tenerife for the past week, so I really feel at home. And the other strange item I've mentioned this week is what's the name of that virus again? Omicron, is it Omicron?
No, it's Omicron. If you're a Greek, I'm a Delta Gamma, so it's Omicron. Yep.
Apparently there was a movie of the same name out in 1963.
There was.
Yes.
I think if you talk to my son, Drew, he will probably know all about it because he's a big film buff. But yeah, I do recall that. I was just a twinkle. No, I wasn't a twinkle, but I was young. I was a 58 baby, so I was pretty young in 63. But yeah, that there was. And it was sort of like an espionage movie.
Was it wife, or was it science fiction?
Espionage, science
sure.
fiction. I don't know. I'll get the answer for that and I'll bring it next week. So we're over, of course, our half hour, because I always do. And I want to share with you something Rose and I worked. So Rose, you can pipe in anytime you want. Rose and I worked this morning on what's really working for the MAAP community and what isn't. So I think that in 2021, what we're going to do is we are going to do a little bit of updating and shifting. And I might actually think about bringing in people who provide things for for us who can talk to it. Like I would bring Kathy in, Susan, to talk about what to do and how to talk to people about your pet who might have behavior issues. And I'm going to bring someone in like Peggy Hoyt, who does trusts and estates and has a trust group that you can think about making sure that that is where your pets, she does a lot of work with shelter and adoptable dogs and rescues that support the care of animals going forward. I know from my research that most of the dogs that come into rescues are due to, at least before COVID, are due to, and even after COVID, the death of the owner with no plan. This is a common thread, and or the owner getting sick, living alone with the pet. The kids don't want it, and they drop it off at the shelter. So we really are going to, work on how to really tackle that thought. So I'm going to bring really interesting and important people. They're only going to be here for about 5 or 10 minutes. I might, push it for till 7:15. So it'll be a 45-minute call instead of a 30-minute call because I know how busy everybody is. But I think I might bring people on just to give us a little more, not just me, but people who are in it, like shelter people. And I'm sure, Kieran, you and I and Spencer and the rest of the people in Rebound Dog will be able to come on and talk about what it is that we do. So I'm really looking forward to the new and improved, but we still will have our workshops. They're going to be more often next year because there have been people clamoring for them. So I'm going to do them probably once a quarter instead of twice a year. I'll do them 4 times a year so that people can really sit down with a group of peers, which is always better because we do tend to follow through when we're with people we're working with, working on the same thing, making a plan for our pets, to make sure they get from M to A to P and be done. So I'm wrapping up. So Sally, tell me what's the best thing about being past Thanksgiving?
Home with the dogs again.
But you're with your family after 2 years. So that was a little bit of a nice time.
Almost 3 years. And I think the most amazing thing was they had not aged, which made me feel great. I thought, what if I don't recognize them? But it was totally upbeat, and it was just so wonderful, even in the airports, to see people hugging hello, hugging goodbye. And you could see everyone was kind of having the same experience. They hadn't been with family and friends in a long time, no matter which airport I was in. And it was just the joy of friendship and family.
Yeah, that really is the biggest thing. Susan, what's the best thing about Thanksgiving being over?
Well, my son's birthday is right before Thanksgiving, and so it's kind of a hectic time for me. I'm trying to get a lot of things done, and I desperately need a little time for myself, and so I'm glad it's over. Yeah, and I'm planning.
So you're relaxing now?
A little bit, yeah. I'm trying to really get into that mode of deep relaxation.
Yeah.
And restoration.
Before the new year.
Yeah.
Barbara, what about you? What's the best thing about Thanksgiving being over? She's gone. Rose, what's the best thing about Thanksgiving being over? Because you were going to have an incredibly delicious Thanksgiving, having no turkey involved.
Christmas is coming. Now I get to have my prime rib. Woo-hoo!
Yay! She's already preparing for Christmas. It's December 1st, Holy Toledo. I have some of my presents gotten, but not all of them. So it'll be an interesting experience for me. Kieran, how about you? I know that you celebrated Thanksgiving with some of your North American friends there in Tenerife. So what's the best thing about being back on deck after the big festivities?
Oh, I think it's probably the countdown to Christmas, which is coming a bit faster than we would like. But
I think every year it comes faster. I mean, my son Thomas, who is 28, said to me, Mom, Christmas comes really quick now. I said, yeah, just wait till you're my age. It's like you turn around. Don't bother to put the Christmas ornaments away because you're just going to use them next week. So until next week, thank
Does
you
feel like
guys
that.
so much for being here. Barbara, are you there? We're going to check in or you're gone?
I am. No, I'm
Oh,
here.
good.
Thank you. I
So
have.
what
I'm
is your
sorry.
Thanksgiving? No, what is your Thanksgiving? The greatest thing about Thanksgiving being over for now?
Actually, everything was good. I had the 3 dogs were here. Our kids were not here, unfortunately, but we switched it up. We didn't have a turkey. We had prime rib.
Oh, see,
that
so
was-
those would have been at your house.
That was different this year for us. So it was good. Just my husband and I and the 3 dogs. So we enjoyed it. We had a good one.
Absolutely. And you know what? The most important people to know who to call. So if your dog, so my kids, I'm sorry, I'm going into this again, but I always do.
That's okay.
My kids love my dogs. But one lives in a no pet building and the other one owns cats. And my dogs are not good with cats because I don't have any. So they know who to call if something happens to me. And that's really important for them. I don't know if you heard that a very long time Irish setter person passed away. She was my age, 63, and had no plan for her pets. And her brother is her only living relative, and he had no idea what to do with her 6 dogs. So I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad you're thinking about it. Letting because your kids don't go to dog shows with you. They don't know the people who are going to come and help if something happens to you. So it's really important to build that network and let people know, because it would have given Jan Zeke's brother, Bill, some closure and some peace of mind if she had written down, call Deborah, she'll tell everybody what to do with the dogs, but she didn't even have that. So it really is. I'm so glad you're here. I hope you come and join us again. We're here every Wednesday because we check in with each other and make sure we kick each other in the pants to make sure we get this done. And every week I give another tidbit that hopefully will help you get to that next level.
Great.
So
Thank you.
you're very welcome. Until next week, it's Deborah Hamilton, Hamilton Law and Mediation, the Why Do Pets Matter podcast, and of course, this wonderful MAAP community. Bye, guys. Give babies a kiss for me.